Our next guest up here. Yes, Kelly, welcome back to Live from the Heartland.
Thank you. Always fun to be here.
State Representative Kelly Cassidy, who's a very busy and good representative for our district. Sorry.
14th district.
The 14th.
I'll always remember that number because that was Gil Hodges of the Brooklyn Dodgers number. And was a key number in my youth.
Try not to hold it, Michael. These things change, you know.
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York, over here now, Chicago, it's all connected.
Yeah. So, Kel.
Hey.
How's the veto session been?
Less productive than I might have hoped, but we've got another full week of work ahead of us, and there's a lot still on the menu.
Yeah. What are the... Talk to us.
We are looking at driver's licenses for undocumented folks. We are looking at equal marriage. We are looking at medical marijuana. We are looking at possible pension reform. And now this week we were informed by an appellate court here in Illinois that we will need to address concealed carry within the next 180 days. We don't have to do that in veto session, and hopefully we won't. I think it needs to be done in a way that cooler heads can engage and find out exactly what they meant by reasonable restrictions, because I've got some ideas about reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with that, and then we'll go back up the list. I added one more: acupuncture.
No, let's start with pension.
Okay.
Come on, that's the big kahuna on the table.
It is.
Actually, a number of our really staunch labor supporters, some of them retired, are all over my case about asking you what's the deal on the pensions.
Well, what's the deal is that over the last almost 2 years that I've been there, we've had several pension proposals sort of tossed to us with minutes to review them before we vote. None of them have ever been done, not only not with actual labor representation at the table, they also haven't been done with anyone who supports the positions of labor at the table.
How can they do that?
Lots of things get done that way. But what we did, several of us, mostly newer members who don't yet perhaps know better, started talking over the summer about what was missing. And for me, what was missing was an actual realistic picture of who is being impacted by these proposals. And if you read the Tribune editorial page, the pension issue is really all about folks with gold-plated pensions making six figures a year on their pension who've gamed the system and have completely bankrupted the state. The reality is very different than that. The average public employee pension is $32,000, and we have been talking about proposals that would take benefits away equally, regardless of whether your pension was $20,000 or $120,000. And so what we did, several of us, we started talking about things that we could do that might be different, that would still solve the pension problem. And I do not disagree with all of the folks who write me and say, it's not my fault, I paid my contributions. And you're absolutely right. But our reality is this. Our pension obligations are growing much faster than revenue is growing, and our budget situation is so desperate that when we were doing Medicaid reform last year, we took away benefits for kids on ventilators. The situation is dire. We have to do a little bit of everything. We can't fix this just by changing the pension system. We can't fix this just by changing Medicaid. We can't fix this just by closing facilities. We've got to do a lot of things, and that includes new revenue. We have to change our tax system, but we've got to do all of these pieces in order.
One question on that is, if I was like an ultra leftist and I was wanting to get the establishment, the ruling class, where else could money come from? I mean, are there arrangements with companies and tax deals? Are there politicians making too much money in some places? Any possible alternative to the solution that you're laying out?
It's not an alternative. It's in addition to. We've got to do it all. There are many corporate tax loopholes we have to close. There are, and I wish I'd been prepared to bring them to you because there's a whole list of.
You can come back.
I'd love to. There are offshore tax credits that we provide to corporations. There's actually a fascinating bill being debated in the Senate right now that will require a great deal more transparency in corporate tax returns that will give us an opportunity to see how much these corporations are really paying in state taxes, which is fascinating. I'm looking forward to that debate and seeing where that bill goes.
Is it going to pass?
It very well may. The Senate president is one of the leading sponsors in the Senate.
Currently, I feel like people are less informed about state politics than they are about, federal politics. That Joe and Jane, average Joe, pay attention to Washington, and it's just too much to take Springfield into account as well. Especially if you live in Chicago, where part of your mind is going, what? What did Ram just say? Let them drive their cars? How do you affect an awareness on the part of voters and citizens on the important work that's being done in Springfield in their name, that if they don't wake up and pay attention, it'll just continue to be run by, let's see, a guy whose name is Michael Madigan, without their input, without following up, without the right people at the table, as you earlier alluded.
Well, we're very lucky up here, as you've heard me say many, many times.
People's Republic of the 14th District.
But I really do enjoy an incredibly well-informed and demanding in all the right ways constituencies. And many of my colleagues are kind of jealous. Many of my colleagues also wonder how I deal with it. I think that as you look at some of the newer members coming in, some of the folks that came in the term that I did, and some of the new folks coming in the next term, there's a great deal of energy and progressive thought coming in, where folks will be more inclined to be more communicative, more engaged, more accessible. The way I've been, the way some of my colleagues have been, where we want to be more in touch, we want to be more connected. We represent just north of 105,000 people, and a very small number of them actually vote in the election, and an even smaller number of them get in contact with us in any given day.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great question, Katie, but I'm going to go down this list of things. So
Go ahead.
Next on the list was driver's licenses for undocumented workers. Status of that?
It has passed the Senate. Very excited. I've been working on this for several months. I got involved with ICER, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and their efforts to ensure that we could get legal driving privileges for folks without documents. And
make a huge difference in people's lives.
It will make a huge difference in people's lives, and it will make a huge difference in highway safety and road safety. What we have now are folks who are driving anyway because they have to go to school, they have to go to work.
Right.
They want more than anything to do so legally. Frequently they buy insurance because they want to be
covered.
They want to be covered, and they want to do the right thing, and then they get in an accident, they make a claim, and their insurance company says, oh, it's not valid, you don't have a driver's license.
Right.
So they're getting gamed left, right, and sideways. But what we can have with this in place is folks who have actually gone through the driver's licensing process. We know they know the rules of the road. We know that their skills have been tested.
Right.
And that alone will make an enormous difference. We know that they have valid insurance, and so if we get into a crash with them, we know that we're going to get covered as well. Mm-hmm. So it's now come over to the House. It's been assigned to the House Transportation Committee. It seems to have hit a snag. Hopefully we will overcome that snag. Overnight I got about 100 emails from folks encouraging me to vote for it. Hopefully people in other districts got more, because I'm already in. So the Transportation Committee is not necessarily a very friendly place for a bill like this. So we'll see how it fares. But I will keep pushing. I've been working the roll call. I've been pushing hard on some of my more conservative colleagues in the House who live in districts that have changed, and they need to know they've changed.
Let's
keep going on your
moving right
list,
along.
Michael.
Okay, equality of marriage.
I'm leaving here and going to a meeting to go over the roll call. Honestly, the bottom line is it's time. It is very simply time. I believe momentum is on our side. It's going to be a heavy lift. There is no doubt about it. There are a lot of tough votes on the agenda. There's always going to be one that's going to be the I can't do one more.
Right.
Hopefully that's not going to be this.
Right.
But really, I think what we saw in the November elections and what we are communicating to our friends, and let me start with, we are starting with a fresh roll call. We are not assuming anything. We're not assuming anybody that was a yes before is a yes again, and we're certainly not assuming anybody that was a no is a no. And I do a lot of bipartisan work. I'm spending a lot of time on the Republican side of the aisle talking to folks about how the world has changed. 4 states were successful in statewide referendums. Polling data has shifted so dramatically. What I said to a couple of friends, we've really reached the point of not mattering anymore. Being gay is no longer red meat.
It's just different now.
We elected an openly gay state representative from a Republican district in Lake County. He knocked off a more than 10-year incumbent who didn't see it coming because nobody believed in him for a million years.
Who are we talking about?
His name is Sam Yingling. He is super awesome and, and a new member of, as we call ourselves, the Gay Super Friends. Now there's 4 of us.
You show-offs.
But we're really looking forward to having Sam with us. Sam brings great credentials to the table. He's been a township supervisor up there for years. He understands the state budget and the township budget process. It's going to be a wonderful addition.
Okay, we're moving right along. We're here talking with 14th District, our state representative, Kelly Cassidy.
You had acupuncture.
I got it coming up. Well, I'll ask that one next. I was reading, I think it was last week when we were trying to get you on the show, there was a whole question. There was a New York Times article or an AP article that basically talked about how the chiropractic people got all ready for dealing with the coming of Obamacare. But in the States, the acupuncture people were a little less ready. So only some states will have acupuncture as part of their medical care. Illinois is not one of them. I wonder if that's come up for you at all.
Your article was the first I'd heard about it. I know that we have really cut back on a lot of services, including some chiropractic care. There have been limits on that in the Medicaid cuts that were made last year. Dental care is in emergencies. Only pregnant women can't get access to dental care, which is actually horrible.
Really dangerous.
So very dangerous. So the cuts were pretty draconian. As we look at the Medicaid expansion bill that Sarah Feigenholtz is sponsoring and that I'm a co-sponsor of that addresses the expansion available under Obamacare, those conversations I think will be happening. And hopefully acupuncture and other alternatives which
like
save us money
alternative.
will be, yes, big fan
and
of
we
those
want to make
so-called
sure
alternatives.
Reiki gets in there too.
Well, actually, I'd really like to make sure midwives are covered.
Absolutely. Well, talk about a money saver. First of all, I have 3 midwife-delivered babies, so I'm preaching to the choir over here. But it is an enormous money saver.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of medical, the medical marijuana is always coming up in this state. I thought we had passed something way back that basically said that we had medical marijuana. And we just had a couple of states legalize marijuana, and the president did say yesterday that when asked, because they had floated something out there about really going after it, he basically said we have bigger fish to fry. And I think they also had taken away funding a while back for prosecution of marijuana. So it looks like there's going to be a real shift on that. Where are we at in Illinois?
We're getting close. Another roll call I've been working with Lou Lang, the lead sponsor on that one. We were within 1 vote a couple weeks ago, and we're just continuing to push. Right now, it's a question of how many growers will be permitted in Illinois. The medical marijuana bill here in Illinois. And let me I'm going to step out of the story for a minute because we need to just legalize. Let's be clear. Enough of this.
Yeah, the whole deal should be legal.
Dancing around the edges. But
Thank you.
We make incremental change here in Illinois, and so this is the increment that we're on right now. So. There was in the original bill there were going to be 59 growers permitted, which coincides with the number of Senate districts in the state of Illinois. There's then been some dispute. At one point, somebody demanded that there only be 1, which is kind of hilarious and ridiculous, and the audience believes so as well. So now that's the point of negotiation, where how many people will be authorized to be growers.
Budweiser or something like that.
Right, exactly. And talk about putting a big target on your head for the feds to shut you down. You're like, you got 1 grower, you're done. Okay, Illinois no longer has it. So that's where the negotiations are in terms of how many growers we can have that will be able to regulate appropriately so that we are sure that it's only used for medical purposes. This bill was written with the so-called errors of other states in mind. We had an enormous bust of California medical marijuana here in Illinois a few weeks ago.
I know. I was really impressed that big of a crop plot could exist in my old home neighborhood on the southwest side around the railroad tracks. I was very impressed, and of course saddened by the useless burning of the beneficent weed. Do you still have contact with the concept that like what you were just saying? Now it's down to 1 grower per district, blah blah blah. Do you still grok how stupid government looks to the outsiders?
Oh yeah.
You know, and
I haven't
how
completely lost touch.
how lame it is. I mean, and I understand the reasons for it. I used to teach government and politics, but no one's explained it to everybody why things take so long, why there are ridiculous conversations continuing session after session.
Well, when we did this, when they came back with, we need to have one because we need to really be able to regulate. I had that moment of just when I thought perhaps we'd found the bottom of the barrel. Look, there's a false bottom, and it goes even lower. And there's somebody who wants a monopoly on providing this relief-giving medicine to people who have no other options. Wow, you really are the lowest of the low. Nice touch.
I'm going back to the list.
All right, honey.
The next thing on the list that Kelly mentioned at the very beginning of things in the veto session was guns. Just came up. The Supreme Court, I think, just ousted the ban on concealed weapons here in Illinois, or openly carrying weapons. Someone asked me yesterday, says, so can I now just get a gun and carry it around? And apparently people can.
No.
No, okay, fill us in.
Not yet. So
they already are.
Yes, but yes, they do already. A lot of them already do. What the court did was give us 180 days to establish a carry law in Illinois that would permit concealed carry with reasonable restrictions. And I am hanging on with all I've got to those two words because we are not